Yes, hello everybody. Welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow. We're brought to you by the Antenna Award nominated in Pit Lane. Yes, there we are. Like
Another one coming.
yeah. Yes, no, we nominated for years and years of services to the industry and the fact that we paid them the $25 entry fee. So there you go. So thank you for making that possible to for out of the $25 out of the budget. So thanks to Roy and everybody, our sponsor at Online Invent, because that's where the money came from. But anyway, it's good to see you. Good to see you here once again. We're joined by Mark Jones, Richard Outram, Peter Johnson is with us tonight. Doc tonight is out. He's celebrity spotting tonight. Well, he's hosting a football awards show or something similar, featuring where he's interviewing and having a chat with the legendary Kevin Sheedy. So Doc's very happy tonight. He's having a one-on-one with Mr. Sheedy. So that'll be fun. But in the meantime, we shan't be talking football. We'll be talking motorsport. A few things happened over the weekend. Of course, we had the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. We've also had more recently, we've had Supercars testing at both Winton and Queensland Raceway. Coming up this weekend, we will have the Speed Series out at Sandown. And this week on the program, our special guest this Thursday night will be Clay Richards, who will be out running in the Peugeot TCR car, the Ben Bargwanna car. He's running alongside of Ben, so the team of Bargwanna and Richards together again for the very first time, as it were, and they'll be running this weekend at the Speed Series, and then of course Clay will be out at the Sandown 500 meeting as well in his Toyota 86. So he's got a couple of big weeks ahead. It's a very busy time. I don't know what it's like up in Queensland, Mark, but it's a very busy time. Apart from Sandown this weekend. The following weekend, we've got the Sandown 500, we've got the Winton 300, we've also got the rounds of both the Victorian and the South Australian state road racing championships for the bikes down at Phillip Island as well. So pretty much you've got, and then drag racing, the off-street drag racing out at Calder. So all the four major circuits sitting here in Victoria have all got something else on that weekend, and of course, the demand for marshals and all that will be absolutely insane. So
yes, indeed.
yes. But anyway, we've got. We'll say hello to everybody. We've got there. Mad Cow Mark has joined us once again. You remember this week, Mark? That's like I said last week. Yes, we're having. I'm having as much trouble as you getting used to it. Good day to Roy. He's a virtual R from our in pit lane sponsor, Online Invent. Good day to Roy. I'm sure he'll be somewhere on the weekend. We've got Box there joining us once again. David Howard again. Looking forward to a big weekend at Sandown. Hopefully the AP GT4s put on a good show. In terms of their field, they've got about the biggest field running this way. There's a couple of very disappointing fields, but that isn't among them. I think all up there's close to 30 cars running around, including 7 GT4s, and one of our regulars on the program making a comeback onto the track, and alongside his father Michael in a brand new Mustang will be Dave Stillwell. He's running. Yeah, he's running this weekend in the Australian production cars, so they'll be out and about on Sandown, and they should be putting on a pretty good show. So a good field, 7 GT4s, and the rest some pretty fast production cars, and that'll be a track I think which will suit some of the cars a little more in terms of making them more competitive with the GT4s. But Paul Van Dracker is with us again. G'day, Paul. He'll be no doubt one of the officials who'll be very busy over the next few weeks, as indeed will we on In Pit Lane. So I'll be at Sandown this weekend, and also probably the following week when everybody else is out at Sandown for the 500. I'll probably be down at Phillip Island for the state bikes, the road racing series, because it is a huge field. They've got over a record entry because they're combining both the Victorian and the South Australian championships, and as a result, there's a very big field down at the island, as I suppose a lot of people getting in the mood for the Grand Prix heading down there in October. Okay, let's talk. Speaking of Grand Prix, Formula One Grand Prix on the weekend. Yet another Max Verstappen win, a record-setting 10th run. But we had it was about 15 laps where we all lived in hope, and
how pathetic
after
are we?
that, yeah, that's it. It was like me looking at a beautiful girl. It's like, perhaps there's a hope. No, there's not.
No.
Which has been better than other Grand Prix where he's just on the first turn just gone and run away.
Well, yeah.
Carlos Sainz did put up a good fight for those 15 laps. So
the interesting thing was Ferrari were very. I saw on one of the sites, one of the news sites that said, Ferrari comeback, signs of things to come, or just a Monza special, and it was just a Monza special. I think we said last week that they always managed to be more competitive at Monza one way or another, and they certainly were. They certainly were this week, but I imagine next when we see them out next time, probably won't be quite as competitive.
Hungary, isn't it?
Singapore.
Sorry, yes, you're. Yeah, and Dan Ricciardo might not be back for that one.
No, he won't be. It looks like he's going to miss both Singapore and Japan. I mean, they've basically said that. If he was in contention for any championships or anything like that, then he'd definitely be back, and they'd take the risk. But they've said, look, basically as he's only really filling in, and Liam Lawson's done a very good job. They see no point in sort of rushing Daniel back at this stage, so I think they're just going to give him time. I know the race that Daniel will definitely want to be at is, of course, the US Grand Prix, because he's a big Americaphile. He loves Texas. He loves that race, and I'm sure he'd be absolutely thrilled to be there. And I know that the organisers would love to have him there too, because he's the most accessible of the Formula One drivers, and he's the one that sort of pops up on all the Tonight shows and does all the morning breakfast radio stuff, and all the rest of the others won't do.
Yeah, very much looking forward to seeing Dan back at the wheel. But is Liam Lawson, our Kiwi, is getting closer to the points. Had a good run into 11th in the end.
He's done absolutely nothing wrong. I mean, he's come back. He's been, he's been competitive. Obviously, Yuki Tsunoda had some problems, but nonetheless, I mean, he was doing better in many times than Yuki was, only in his second round. And obviously, he is. He said that already. He's absolutely delighted that he's going to be on the grid in Japan, because he knows that track very well from from Super Formula. And he said, I'll feel very comfortable there. He said, because he said they only race here once a year. He said, I've raced here several times over the past few years, so he's very comfortable at being there, and I think he'll be. Although I imagine Yuki Tsunoda's probably pretty comfortable there as well. But he's certainly done himself no harm for his future career, and you'd have to think that somebody would be looking at him now and thinking that he's a better option than some of the people that are running around on the grid at the moment.
You'd be wondering if he's been keeping Daniel's seat warm, and whether would Daniel get back into it.
Yeah, well, long term, I mean, it would make more sense to keep Lawson in the car, because, I mean, he's at the right age. I mean, he's younger than Oscar Piastri. That's the thing. I mean, it's like a lot of these New Zealanders. I mean, they start so young, and they've been around for so long. I mean, I was really surprised when they said, that Oscar wasn't the youngest driver that Liam Lawson was, and I thought, oh no, surely Liam's older than Oscar, but no, he's not.
He has been around a long time, hasn't he?
Yeah, and he's still only a kid. I mean, that's
he's still a teenager.
It's unbelievable.
Wow.
Oh, he's well. I say still a teenager, but I think he's moved past that now. But yeah, he's and it like 2 years ago he almost won DTM.
DTM, yeah, he's done very well. He basically has just put his hand up in pretty much everywhere. Everywhere he's gone, that he's done really well,
and he had Alex Albon for a teammate.
That's one of the rumours that was floating around at the moment, that they're sort of saying that if they can't keep him at AlphaTauri. Incidentally, this is rumour. In fact, I haven't set up our banners to run as yet, because that's one of the stories is in there. A German website, so take this with a very large grain of salt, is claiming that AlphaTauri is for next year is about to be renamed Hugo Boss.
I've heard that previously, and it was written up a few weeks ago in Auto Action.
And they've got some history as a Formula One sponsor, Hugo Boss. I mean, they were a sponsor for McLaren for several years during the
they're still with
Prost era.
They're still on board with Aston Martin. They have a sponsorship there, and they were heavily involved in sponsoring Formula E. Now, the reason that this has come about is that they've pulled out of their Formula E sponsorship, and their marketing manager has said that this didn't mean the end of their involvement in motorsport, but now they would concentrate on future endeavours in Formula One. So, whether that's an opportunity for Hugo Boss, I mean, the team uniforms would be stylish, if nothing else. I mean, they catered for the Nazis very well, so...
Well, memories of
They always look sharp.
They always look sharp. Say what you like about your Nazi, but by God, they were dressed beautifully.
Well, perhaps slightly more relevant, I remember the Gagan brothers turned up for Bathurst in 1965 wearing suits.
Yeah, that's right, yes.
And Ellen Grice used to go around with a fag hanging out of his mouth down the main street too.
Well, that's less of a Hugo Boss thing, but yes.
Oh, I don't know.
That's all. Things have changed.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. But as I said, it is real. It would be. It'd be good marketing, but obviously it looks like AlphaTauri that Red Bull would like to sort of be free of the thing, at least in some small part. So that's a possibility that they could get taken over. Also interesting today that Andretti Autosport have now renamed themselves Andretti Global. It's starting to sound like what was that James Bond sort of that evil empire send up in The Simpsons? It sounds like welcome to Andretti Global.
It's going to bug me now.
Yeah.
Scorpio?
I think you're right. Yeah, I think it was Scorpio.
Yes. With Dr. Evil and...
Welcome to Andretti Global, Mr. Bond.
Well, yeah, and I suppose things have been... That's the US has been where a lot of things have been happening in the last week or so. We now have not a new IndyCar champion, but Alex Palau's retained his IndyCar championship.
Yes, and just wrapped it all up. But as John's saying, well, of course I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, who could forget that beautiful Hugo Boss Porsche, the 965 in the Group C car in the black and white and all that. I must say I made fun of it, but I really do like Hugo. I've got a bit of Hugo Boss stuff in the wardrobe. I don't get an opportunity to wear it very often, and some of it doesn't fit me anymore, unfortunately, because it costs a little bit of money back in the day. But it's I do like Hugo Boss's stuff, so yeah. But also what Paul saying, thoughts of the penalties that meant nothing, as in Hamilton and Russell. It was very nice. It was very nice. I thought of everyone saying, wasn't it good that Lewis said sorry to Oscar for the contact and took the responsibility? Yeah, it's so he bloody should. It was all his fault. Had nothing to do with.
Even though the penalties meant nothing, you have to be consistent, because if they didn't give a penalty, there would have been outcry. Oh, he didn't get a penalty, but I did. So even
But
though
I think that's the point. I mean, well, these 5-second penalties do seem fairly pointless. I mean, at most they might cost you 1 or 2 places. If providing you don't have a safety car late in the race, it might cost you 1 or 2 places. But you could absolutely destroy someone else's race. I mean, whatever. I mean, the standard way back when was always like a 30-second penalty or a minute penalty or something. Like a minute penalty would have some meaning. It's like, okay, Mr. Hamilton, you got a minute's penalty, and that puts him right at the back and takes him out of the points. But we went through
a bit of a phase where a 30-second penalty could drop you out of the top 10 a few years ago, when the race results got quite condensed for a little bit, but they've blown out again now. So I think a minute penalty just means that Max Verstappen would win the race by only 1 minute instead of
or possibly come second or third.
Well, yeah,
possible.
Yeah, it does seem fairly true. I mean, there was also contact, of course, we saw between Oscar and Lando Norris and his teammate, which the team management are far from impressed about. There's adjustments will be made, So we'll see what these adjustments are. It's interesting. I thought, I don't know, I got the impression from the commentary, the Sky commentators were once again very quick to sort of blame Oscar for the whole thing. It was like like the kid just very irresponsible, just there. But I think the problem with drive-through penalties, Roy, is that people can take them as long as they take them. When they're supposed to, and they don't sort of play them and for strategic purposes. But a drive-through penalty, I think, would be
they have a tendency to be a bit harsh, and but they're also can be very variable because some pit lanes are substantially larger than others. So it doesn't have that doesn't have the merit of consistency when you go to a place like
perhaps they need to bring in the long lap like the bikes have got. That just bring them in, because that seems to be to swap things around a bit with the long lap, and there'd be a few of the circuits where they could probably do it, where they are set up for because of the bikes. Where they are set up for the long lap, have them just take that extra corner at on the speed limiter and out again. It wouldn't be as long as a pit drive through, but it'd still be long enough to sort of knock them back a few places.
Yeah, a long lap at Monaco might be a problem. You might end up getting wet.
That's be more fun.
Stop at the casino and put a couple of bets on and get going again.
I like the idea of that. To make it more sort of to make it more realistic, you've got to go through the nearest set up a McDonald's drive-through. It's a great sponsorship thing. Hamilton to the McDonald's drive-through, and what do you mean you don't have vegan?
It would also have to be on the roof of the tunnel.
Yes. Well, they can go upside down. We keep getting told that they can go up, so they can drive upside down. Let's see it. Let's prove it.
Or they could do the old bank circuit at Monza as the long drive. That would the crowd would love that.
Very long.
Oh yeah, that would be a long, but it'd be a spectacular one. The crowd would go crazy. Yeah, they need to drive through France. That's the problem. It's like they'd have to stop off at the passport office and get changed to what is your intention, monsieur, of coming into France? Long lap penalty at Monaco. Okay, there you are. Enjoy your stay, Mr. Hamilton.
And the commentators, that was a great passport stop, 2.5 seconds.
Yes.
Well, they might have to actually visit San Marino for the San Marino Grand Prix on a long lap penalty.
Yes,
that would be the penalty. You actually have to drive through San Marino.
Marina, yes. Or you could stop off and get mugged at your hotel and have your watch stolen. It's a great tradition. A great tradition of both the Italian Grand Prix and the Brazilian Grand Prix is to have a Formula One driver having something stolen from them. But,
Bernie Eccles' wife almost had her ring stolen at one stage, and the little bugger put up such a fight they ran off.
yes.
Says something
Yes.
more about the Eccleston family, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you're going to, there's no honour among thieves, and you want to be very careful about who you're tackling. First law of a street fight is know your enemy. But anyway, don't get between Bernie and some money, that's for sure.
Yep, that's
So
what else? Headed.
What else did we learn? As we expected, the Williams were very fast in a straight line, and Alex Albon is doing himself no harm. He's putting in some pretty good performances. I think he's done very well this year under the circumstances. But his teammate, you got to think that Sargent's on very borrowed time.
Be nice, yeah.
Yeah. Would they bring back, because De Vries did actually do well at Williams? Would they bring him back to Williams?
Yeah, well, as you say, he did do quite well. So he's obviously got recent experience. So I could certainly see worse. Can certainly see worse situations coming out of it. It looks like we've lost Mark there for the moment. Hopefully, this is not the start of the problems we had last time around, where one by one we all sort of disappeared over the course of. There we are. We've got him back on another. There he is. He's coming.
Oh, there's two of me.
Yeah, there's two.
Yeah. That's just what we need for officials, cloning.
Ladies and gentlemen, John Cena has joined us.
I have met
There we go.
two other Mark Joneses who are racing drivers at various points, so it's not as unexpected.
Yes, so but we're set up now, so nothing crashed. But yeah, an interesting. The other rumour that's going around at the moment, once again from a German website, they seem to come up with these ones, but it seems to be something that's being pushed increasingly loudly and increasingly by his father, and that is the fact that Audi are apparently very interested, or supposedly very interested in Sainz as an Audi driver. I mean, obviously the family have got connections with Audi, and Carlos Senior is sort of saying that Carlos Junior would be a very, very good get for the new team at the end of next year. So I could see that happening.
It would be a little bit of a concern, I guess, if Carlos Sainz is actually starting to prove himself to be the better than Charles Leclerc, that Ferrari might be more interested in hanging on to.
Charles has really gone off the board, because Charles looked like $1 million. He looked to be he was the man who was going to challenge Verstappen, and then obviously something's gone seriously off the boil with him over the past. Have we heard anything? I mean, what excuses or anything has he offered in terms of why he's not as competitive as he was?
He just, over the radio, he just keeps blaming the team for making the wrong calls.
They have made a few really bizarre. It has been the Marx Brothers at times.
Yeah. And going through the alphabet of strategies.
Yes, a very a traditional Ferrari thing to do. It's but yes, I imagine he would be, in spite of his current form and the fact and his current struggles, I imagine Leclerc would be a very, very popular choice for another team somewhere, particularly for somebody like an Alpine or something, because they would love to have obviously a
French driver,
French driver. Oh, he's Monegasque.
Monegasque, but yeah.
He did drive well because he appeared to have problems with his DRS.
You were saying that on Tuesday, yesterday.
Yeah. And so he did drive well because he had some good battles with Carlos, and his his DRS was not staying up; it was going up and down, and
I saw
he
that.
so he did drive well, I thought.
Yeah, well, hopefully he can come back to form because he was a very good driver, and he was certainly like in the same sort of in the same sentence as Verstappen and Hamilton. So if he can come back and be there, that would be good. But yeah, all in all, not a bad meeting, and of course we have Singapore coming up next, which is, even though it's a night race, more in our time zone, and always looks good. Even if the racing isn't brilliant, it always looks pretty. So it's a race that I would love to go to. I think it would be an amazing spectacle. I'd love to go and have a look at it.
And it's more like an endurance race. It's a real car tester.
Yeah, and also you never know what's going to happen with the weather as well, in terms of because it's in, even though it's at a good time of the year, it's always got that sort of that tropical threat of like a sudden storm blowing in, or being like really really humid, or really hot, or whatever. It can certainly tax both the drivers and the cars. But anyway, so that's we've had Supercars have been testing, and up at Queensland Raceway, Shane van Gisbergen had some problems with the brakes
My
again.
goodness. Mm.
That was a big bang. Although unfortunately, big bangs out at Queensland Raceway are not particularly unknown.
And there's been another one as well with one of the I think one of the truck assist cars was also had an incident today.
Yes.
Yeah, people are looking. I mean, Peter Adderton has once again been up and down saying, "Well, this proves what crap cars these Gen 3." Yeah, I told you so. I told you they were crap cars. I told you that this is Mark Scaife's involved in this. But as he keeps saying, it's like CM Punk today. Tell me I'm lying. Tell me I'm saying something wrong. Tell me I'm making stuff up. Because there are certainly. That's why I think it's going to be in both Sandown and particularly Bathurst this year. Could be very interesting and could throw up a surprise in both cases, because this is the first real long distance test that we've seen out of these cars, and so far they haven't looked to be as bulletproof as the old ones were.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
steering racks, injection, fuel lines, four fires. Yes.
And we've had Cameron Hill's crash at QR today. Or I say crash, but it was a wheel fell off the car. And that's what
happened to.
What put him into the sand trap. So it's certainly they're finding out what things break and when.
And if Ford dominates in the endurance, you watch the Camaros outcry, "Oh, it's parity." Suddenly you make it better for Bathurst, and blah blah blah, wins.
And I think Ford would be very happy. I imagine that if Ford won Bathurst, they wouldn't really, because I think they're still from outside of the motor racing sphere and just the general community. I mean, which one is going to have more impact? I mean, to say yes, I'm a former supercar champion, or I won the Bathurst 1000. For most people. It's like winning. It's like being the winning rider of the Melbourne Cup. I mean, it is the race of the year, and to say that I won Bathurst, to say Ford wins Bathurst, Mustang wins Bathurst, I'm sure they'd be very very happy with just getting away with that.
Well, and of course, that begs the comparison to the Indy 500, where the other major championship, where one race stands significantly above the others.
Yeah, and that's it. And it brings down. This is the problem of having it as part of the series. Is how do you strategize about that? You really can't. I mean, because every driver I've ever spoken to about Bathurst, even those. I think apart from possibly Shane, I think sort of Shane has sort of said that if he was if he was in contention for the championship, and if really pushing it was going to put him out of contention for the championship, he'd probably look at the big picture first. But most other drivers I've spoken to have just said, no, bugger it, we're going for it. We want to win Bathurst. We're not even thinking about the championship when we're at Bathurst.
And as Jamie Whincup has demonstrated on more than one occasion.
Yes, very much so.
And when I was watching Tail and Bend, I know that was a few weeks ago, but I noticed that the Mustangs were having a really close battle, and I wondered, I'm going to probably get shot down in flames, but I wondered, because the Ford versus Holden thing is kind of obsolete now, I wondered if it was worth maybe having a one-make series of V8s.
Well, they almost were. I mean, that was the thing that was the reason that Ford jumped up and down about, because the original plan was to have a control engine, a bit like sort of Trans Am, or TA2, and we had like Elliot Barber on the program last week, and he was saying, well, this is the beauty of TA2. This is why the racing there has been so good all through the year, and they'll be back out at Sandown this weekend as well, and they've got a pretty good field. And the racing has been fantastic in that, and that's because they've all got the same motor, basically the same chassis, same running gear, same engine, same gear, everything. It's just a different body on it, and nobody seems to care. It's and it looks good. I mean, when you're looking at it, it's a Mustang versus a Camaro versus a Dodge Challenger. The fact that they've all got sort of basically Chev crate engines under there, nobody out there really cares about.
Yeah, like NASCAR, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the flip side of that is you're then giving up more or less permanently the manufacturer involvement in the sport.
Well, we've only really got the one manufacturer involved in the sport now, so forth.
But the option is there, and there's there's ways and means. But you go to the moment you go to a control engine, then that's sort of sending up the white flag to say, we've decided that that's not going to be a thing anymore.
Well, that's why I sort of like the TCR approach, as we said. I mean, if you watch tomorrow night, we talk about that with Clay Richards, and the fact that you've got the TCR cars are much closer. I mean, but you look at them with all of the wild bodywork and all the rest of it, and you think that they're a bit like a sports sedan, but really, you take off those flared guards and the wings. And underneath, I mean, they're pretty much an improved production stack, racer. I mean, they're not as wildly modified as a lot of people would think. And there's basically the DNA of what you see, of what is under the bodywork is essentially the DNA, mostly the DNA of the road car.
And and they don't push mechanically as hard as make the comparison to Super Touring, where Super Touring didn't have a lot less horsepower than what TCR has now, but TCR's a turbocharged.
Yeah, and I mean, and the Super Tourers, I mean, they were a beautiful car. I mean, you have a look at the engineering on some of those cars, and they were absolutely immaculate, the most lovely. Yeah. Absolutely lovely things to look at, and you still see them when they turn up at historic meetings. At times you go around and have a look at them, and I mean they're worth just wandering around the paddock and getting into the garage and going over them with a fine-tooth comb, because they're just absolutely beautiful bits of engineering. But they were very, very expensive and very fragile, and the idea behind TCR was basically I mean they were just under such stress to come up with those sorts of speeds, whereas the whole idea behind TCR was we're going to yes, we could screw an extra 80 to 100 horsepower out of those motors, but we're not. We're going to look for long-term durability, and the fact that they can take them out of pretty much without doing any major work apart from putting in another fuel tank and making a few sort of changes to brakes and some upgraded suspension. They can take them out and they can run them at the Nürburgring 24-hour or in any of the Creventic 24-hour events. And they just run all day and all night. They just keep going and going and going. So they're a very reliable car, and as we say, pretty much every manufacturer has got a dog in that fight. I mean, most manufacturers even today have still got a 2 litre front wheel drive compact or subcompact.
Yeah, indeed, and although, mind you, a lot of them, a fair chunk of the TCR grid for quite a few years were all coming out of the same factory with Volkswagen and Audi and Seat/Cupra, all more or less being the same car underneath. But we did eventually diversify away from the majority Volkswagen.
Well, we haven't seen them yet, but we've got Toyota running. There is a Toyota. There was very briefly a Mazda. It was a lovely looking little car too. The Mazda, I think it was a Mazda 3 that they were running in North America. Somebody came up with that. And unfortunately, it didn't get the funding, and it never sort of was developed. But it looked really good. But Toyota have got a Corolla running around now in both. I think it's in the South American series and also in Japan itself, and that looks good. You've got Hyundai, of course, very much committed to it. Lynk & Co. We don't know much about. They're not a big brand here in Australia, but they're certainly
there's a lot of Volvo.
Committed.
There's a lot of Volvo underneath the skin of the Lynk & Co,
yeah.
mind you.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, they've got that background, and Tom Oliphant will be the British driver will be back this week. Tim Slade replaced him for a couple of rounds because he went back home to get married, so he went he disappeared for a couple of rounds, and so now he's back in Australia, and he'll be back behind the wheel of the Lynk & Co this weekend out at Sandown. So they're out there on Friday for some practice, and then of course Saturday and Sunday. I think it's cost about $30 admission, so it's an awful lot cheaper to go and watch the Speed Series this week than it is to go and watch the Supercars the following week, where I think the cheapest tickets are about $85 a day or something, and that
I think they're sold out apart from Thursday when there's no V8s or no Supercars.
Oh, okay.
I tried to get a ticket and it was sold out. It was saying it was sold out.
Wow.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's been a lot.
Even though they're advertising on Facebook that get your tickets, but it's sold out apart from Thursday apparently.
Well, hasn't happened for a long time.
No, that's it. I mean, they're sold, but as we know, they're sold out. Although, we'll never see the sort of crowds we used to see at Sandown because and Richard would well remember the days when we used to be able to be on the inside of the. Used to be able to stand behind the second rail of the horse racing track, and the people were lined up right around on the inside. They were all the way up the back, all the way packed in like sardines over Dandenong Road, over the hill, all the way down the side, and then of course the grandstand. It was packed to capacity. It was literally standing room only in the grandstand, and we haven't seen that for years. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if they get that. If they do get that sort of crowd, because at the moment it's very mixed. I mean, the crowd they said they were real that it was a good crowd at Tailem Bend. It certainly didn't look like it. The television ratings were terrible. The Saturday race only got 41,000 nationally. That was all it was. Now 41,000. To put that in perspective, and we found out this sort of on Tuesday last night when we were recording the program, 41,000 people nationally watching a round of Supercars live. Our average audience in May for In Pit Lane on Channel 31 is 22,000. So we got about half, just in Melbourne, and that's just in Melbourne and Geelong alone on Channel 31 with a no-budget community television show, and we're 41,000 nationally is not a good figure.
No, it's not.
Wow, that barely pays for the concession stands, basically.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the point is, it does go all over the place because it was 41,000. For some reason, people just not watching at the Bend. But then you go back a few rounds to I think it was at Townsville, and the figures were up around the 110,000 mark. So people are tuning
Yeah.
in. They're picking and choosing. It's like,
Was that-
where are they this weekend? Oh, they're at Tailem Bend. Oh, I'm not watching that. When are they back? Oh, the Sandown 500's coming back. Oh, yeah, we'll watch that.
I
It's
think
about brand recognition too. I mean, how many people recognise the name Tailem Bend, and it's not embedded in the fans' psyche.
Even in Adelaide, it's amazing. When I was a couple of times, I've been to Adelaide since then, and I've spoken to people, and also they've got that really weird thing in Adelaide where. And if there's anybody watching from Adelaide, perhaps they can explain it. But you talk to people in Adelaide about Tailem Bend, and the way they make it sound, you'd think it was like 400 miles away. It's closer than Phillip Island is to Melbourne. It's not that much further, really, because it's freeway, basically freeway all the way. It's less than an hour from the heart of Adelaide, from what I see. And you talk to them, it's like, oh, it's too far. Oh, it's miles out, mate. You're driving for days, and it's like, no, it's not. It's about an hour's. It takes me longer to get from here to Melbourne than it does to get from Adelaide to Tailem Bend, and we do that 4 or 5 times a week.
I can't remember. Is it further or further than Malalar or not? But by the same token, they've gotten out of the habit of gotten out of the habit of travelling to Malalar, of course. With
the thing is, Malalar's pretty close as well. I mean, when you compare, like when you look at it, compared with what we have here in Melbourne, and obviously Sandown is close, but Calder's, but take them out of the equation. You look at it, it's certainly way closer than Winton. They're both way closer than Phillip Island to the heart of the city. But when I did the historics up at Malalara, the pub I was staying at, and it was over that side of the city. Oh, what are you here for? Oh, you're going up to Malalara. Oh, what are they doing there? You should go up. Oh no, it's too long a drive out there, and it was about. I think it was 45 minutes from where I was. It was 45 minutes from, I think I was at Unley, and I think it was 45 minutes from there to Malalar, and it was, like 45 minutes. God, what's that? I mean, God's.
Yeah, well, you tend to get more, country racetracks, like my experiences with Morgan Park is that people that go to those racetracks are from the area. It gets, that people from country areas travel further to and more enthusiastically to go to motorsport than city folk do.
Yeah, I think so, and I think it's what you're used to. I mean, even I've told the story before when we were at Le Mans that the woman there who ran the media centre ended up spending the night, spending part of the night sleeping in our car in the media car park because she was complaining about having to drive back at that late time of night all the way to where she lived. And I said, she mentioned the town. I said, how far away is it? And she said, it is miles away. She said, it will take me, at least 25 to 30 minutes to get out there. And it was like, so in the end, I mean, Melissa said, well, do you want our cars, do you want to grab a nap in our car? And I was like, oh, thank you very much. And so she went out and slept in our car for a few hours. Because she didn't want to drive that crazy 25 minutes. Although that's on a normal day, I must admit, with the traffic around Le Mans, no matter what time you drive in or out of there at night, there's a traffic jam. So,
and it was a sellout too.
Yeah, well, not the way we went. It was still busy, but Paul's been to the Bend quite a few times. So the Bend's like driving to Ballarat, he said. Biggest issue, the last 2 kilometres of 2-lane highway. About the same distance to Malalar, but Malalar has more 2-lane roads to get to it. Yeah, the drive out to Malalar was very straightforward. There wasn't a problem. But I must admit, I haven't even been to the Bend yet. I'd really like to go for the opening of the drags. I'm not sure what the situation is going to be, but the drag strip is opening. They will have a massive crowd out there for that. When they have the opening of the drag strip, that'll be one of their biggest crowds, and that'll really test them in terms of getting people in and out. And I suppose that is one of the problems of having it out there is the fact that there's no, unless you get unless they put on the buses like they did for the supercars, unless they put on private buses, there's no public transport out there. So you've either got to drive or you basically got to drive out there. If you want to get there, you drive. So interesting. But looking forward to that. That'll be a huge meeting, that drag racing meeting. And they've got before they have the main opening, they've got a soft opening coming up, an all bike meeting, a Harley Davidson meeting coming up in a couple of weeks' time. So be interesting. They might even get a good crowd for that. But once they get the drag strip happening out there, you won't be able to move in the joint.
Is there good parking out there?
I would imagine so. Because
there was a very large car park out the front of the Bend. I had the pleasure to go there a couple of years ago with the Supercar Championship.
And they've got the hotel like the Ridges at Bathurst.
Yeah.
Bend, I believe.
Well, that's the entire building. Like it's one building with the Ridges in the middle of it.
Yeah, they've also got a caravan park alongside and camping areas alongside, because that's what I was
cabins,
looking at. Yeah, the cabins. Although that's pretty much heavily booked out, but I was just even looking at because I've got all the camping gear I bought for the Bathurst 12 hour, and I didn't get up. I've used it once. And I haven't been back there since. And then for the next Bathurst 12 hour, I've actually, I must admit, I think I told the story. Well, recently, I don't know if I told it publicly, but we got the note of the date change came out, but it was embargoed. So before it went public, I jumped online and grabbed the hotel room and got it for like about $70 a night.
Oh, good work.
So I've got my 3 nights there, and it's only in a pub, and it's a pub with a shared bedroom, like I had in Sydney. It's a pub with a shared bedroom, but it's no matter what it's like, it's going to be a lot more comfortable than camping on the mountain. Although there is something wonderful about sort of sitting out there on a camp chair at sort of a bit after 1 o'clock in the morning, looking up at the top of the mountain at that Mount Panorama side and with the stars and thinking, I can see the attraction in this.
Look, I might have to grab the float that we're getting soon, because it comes fully equipped with everything, and you could just park it anywhere. We're set up, so I've got to think about that.
That's what I had sort of, the first couple of times I camped up there. If you remember, I had a loan of a couple of vans. The first year I had a van from Renault, and then the second time around I had that monstrous thing from Fiat. It was a huge thing, and just, I had a steady stream of people coming past, going, "Wow, what a mobile home this would make." And I just had it. It was just the van with my camping gear with the stretcher inside, but it was huge. I mean, it was. But the problem is with motorhomes is you're sort of stuck there. Once you get there and you're set up, if you want to go into town or go for a quick run anywhere, unless you throw a bike on the back or something like that, you're pretty much stuck there. Whereas the year I took the tent was there, and if I wanted to just, if I wanted to take off and dive into town and, go to the pub and have a meal, I could just jump in and off I'd go. And that was the attraction of being able to leave something there, whether it's a tent or a caravan or something like that. It's a lot of advantages in that. So I can see the downside of a mobile home. Paul saying not a lot of motels in Tailem Bend. A few in Murray Bridge. I'm not sure where Doc was staying. Doc went for the Asian Le Mans series, and he stayed somewhere closer to the coast. It was about sort of half an hour, sort of down south, near the mouth of the Murray, and he'd certainly stay there again. He said it was a really good, comfortable drive and nice place to stay. So Doc's not with us tonight. As I said earlier, if you missed us earlier, Doc is off hosting Mr. Kevin Sheedy tonight for a football gig. So he's on stage with Mr. Sheedy.
Now, talking about Adelaide, we all remember the race of 1,000 years in Adelaide.
We certainly do.
Well, remember the Cadillac, of course. Well, that is in Melbourne, as you know, and it's about half finished. So I can't wait till it
Cadillac
does some
North Star.
demonstration.
Yes. Yeah.
No, 4 litre V8. Oh, what?
Yeah, LMP1. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And
owned by our good friend and former In Pit Lane crew member, Mr. Jordan Roddy.
yes, he remembers this show very fondly.
Yes, so we will once it's in sort of a finished or semi-finished condition. We will certainly get a camera out there and have a wander around and have a look at it, because we had a look at it. We'll bring back a lot of memories, because as I keep saying, still to this day, in terms of Australian meetings, far and away the best meeting that I've ever attended. And I put that online just recently, and so many people who were there, so many of the American team bosses and media and all that all got back and said, "Oh yeah, just one hell of a good meeting. God, we wish it hadn't have been a one-off, because it was so friendly. Everybody was just so open, and just there was no restrictions. I mean, walked into the Audi thing, and Dr. Wolfgang Ulrich comes out and says, "Oh, do you want us to take the car outside for you so you get a better shot? And if you need any panels ripped off, just talk to the mechanics. They'll tear the panels off and show you what's under the." And they were just Don Payne Oz. It was just a wonderful, wonderful meeting.
And some of the cars just sounded gorgeous, like the 4-litre versions of the 3-litre Judd V10s, and
howling through in the dark, the brakes glowing, the numbers lit up. Sensation.
Big Corvettes, screaming Porsches.
The lights all blazing down the Brabham Straight. Yeah, cool.
Like I said, that was one of the real catalysts for that got Melissa and I to Le Mans, because that's that was the first time we travelled together. As Richard will remember, that was the first time that Melissa and I sort of went away together, and I thought she's not going to enjoy this. And she came back and said, "We've got to do this again." And sort of within 2 years, we were at Le Mans together. Because that was, it was just this was good. Can you imagine what Le Mans would be like? Well, she just rang and said, "Le Mans is happening, the final ever meeting at Montlaret, and the Goodwood Festival of Speed the week after. 3 weeks in a row that will never happen again. We're going." And I said, "I can't afford it." She said, "You'll never afford it. Go anyway." And it was the best thing I do. But
Which reminds me, another thing, the Jag, the Group A Jag, went over to Goodwood this year.
Did it?
And Armin Hart and John Goss took it up the hill climb. But there's a chance that it might not come back, which would be very disappointing.
It would be very sad. That's the problem. I mean, it's the same with the 5,000s that have gone across to America for Laguna Seca. I think most of them are coming back, but there were certainly some offers made, I believe, on some of the cars that raced at Laguna Seca to say, "Hey, we don't remember that car. It used to race in America, and we'd like it to come back here now. We'd like to sort of run it back in its original livery and keep it in the States." So yeah, I think there's going to be there will be more and more pressures on Australian historic races coming up. Speaking of Goodwood, coming up, I think it's this weekend, the Goodwood Revival is happening, and that will be live streamed on the Goodwood site, and we will have the link to that and the embed on that on the In Pit Lane YouTube, on the In Pit Lane website. So if you can't remember, just go to inpitlane.com and you will see all of the action from Goodwood over the 3 days.
We'll be on track this time tomorrow, I think.
Yeah,
that would make sense if it is, because this Friday is a certain anniversary. 17 years ago.
Of
Peter Brock.
Oh.
Yeah.
I
remember that well.
Yeah. Was it that long ago?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because my nephew was born on the Monday, and he died on the Friday. That's how I remember it.
Yeah, I was at Wyndham doing practice for Touring Car Masters, and Alan Moffat was right beside me when I got told. And I was sorry.
Richard, go on.
I was going to turn around and get some quotes for you, but someone said no, don't do that. No.
I think a lot of people were really surprised. That was the thing when they had the big sort of memorial out at Sandown that that was out there. That a lot of people, I think, were really. Alan was just so emotional at that point, and I think it surprised a lot of people to know just how close he was to Brock and how much. How much that really did sort of knock him around, because he was very, very, he really struggled. He got he paid his tribute, but he was in tears the whole time. He really struggled to get it out, and a lot of people, I think, were really surprised to learn of the depths of their friendship. So yeah, but
it's defined their careers on each other, basically.
Yeah, well, it's like I've said before. I mean, it's the pro wrestling thing. I mean, the quality of your hero is often dictated by the quality of your heel. And my Moffat was the man in the black hat. He was the ultra professional, guy from North America, the foreigner with the best of everything and all the international. And as far as sort of the local media was concerned, Brocky was some knockabout from the suburbs, in a hot and up Tirana that he and Harry First and a few mates put together in a backyard somewhere. It wasn't quite like that, but that's how people that's how people read the mythology of it all, and that's what raised him up. But yeah, I mean, obviously an amazing weekend, but it just doesn't seem so long ago that it was there, because as I said, we had that whole thing about having that last interview with him, and the chaos that that I lived through that weekend with the bloody media, the mainstream, trying to get their hands on that interview. That was not a. It wasn't a pleasant weekend for all sorts of reasons. It was very annoying and very sad. But it just doesn't seem so long ago. If you said to me like it's the 17th, I've said no, it couldn't be that long. Wow.
Weren't the media trying to make something of the Bendel's? Keep forgetting that the car. It's
the Daytona.
Daytona, thank you.
Daytona Coupe.
Yes, the Daytona Coupe. Yes, they're all trying to say it was a dangerous car and trying to get people to say, Bendel should be hung or something like that. It was very ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul Van Dyke just saying about talking to Alan, because Paul was very heavily involved in that, talking to Davo, and said, because I think Paul was, and Paul and Davo and a few people are of the same thing. I mean, they had the big sort of the state funeral, and it was like, well, that was for his family, that was for the VIPs, that was whatever. But for the rest of us, the people, and it was interesting on that day that when we all went out there were so many people who just went, and there was current supercar drivers. I remember Garth and Leanne were out there. There was Jamie Whincup was out there, lots of media, Mark Fogarty, all the rest. Everyone went out there, and it was like even when I got there, they said, "Oh, there's a spot for the media and for the VIPs in the grandstand," sort of thing, and nobody wanted. It was like, no, we're not here. We're not here as media. We're here as people said. "Oh, where's the camera?" And it's like, no, there's no camera. We're not here for that. We're fans, and we're fans, and we're friends, and we want to say goodbye. And it was very well done. It was a very moving ceremony. And as Paul's saying that, we had the opportunity of talking of saying thank you to Moff for his involvement in it before his own problems set in. So yeah. Okay, everybody. Well, let's, on that note, let's call it quits there, I think. Now, as I said, tomorrow night on the program, we will have on In Pit Lane on Channel 31 at 9 o'clock. And when I eventually get it up onto YouTube, which I'll have to do sometime tonight, we'll have our special guest Clay Richards. We've also got some great music by Mark Sinner, local singer-songwriter. Looks good, sound good. We had a really good show last night, I think. What did you think, Peter? It certainly seemed to fall together well, didn't it?
Mute. You're on mute.
Peter's mute. There we go.
It was very good, and it's Matt Sinner. Not Mark Sinner, Matt Sinner.
Matt Sinner, sorry, Matt Sinner. Yeah, I was thinking Matt Sinner. So he'll be joining us. So he joins us tomorrow night. And if you watch online, you get 2 songs from Matt, and they're both killer songs. And you'll see that. And as I said, Clay Richards joining us. And of course, we've got highlights from NASCAR, from the NHRA Nationals, the Drag Racing Nationals. And I said last week about wouldn't it be good to see the Don the Snake Prudhomme funny car get up and have a win on the weekend for old time's sake. It'd bring back a lot of wonderful memories. Well, the good news is it did. It got up there, and Don Prudhomme was on the start line to watch it go across the line and take the win in funny car. So you'll see that tomorrow night on the show if you haven't seen it already. Okay, everybody. Yep.
If I may, just a shout out, because this weekend for the Indy Next finale, Hunter McElroy is clinging on to second place in the championship. Of course, son of Andy of Gold Coast-based Porsche specialists, and so all the best for Hunter on his to try and hang on to second place in the. He's had a fantastic run over there in a series where. Oliver Rasmussen has just destroyed everybody else in the championship. But there's 2 or 3 drivers who have closed right up because Hunter unfortunately had his worst race of his season last weekend, and that's reduced the points gap to about 5 points. So here's hoping.
So that's coming up this weekend as well. And as we said, Goodwood Revival, and locally, of course, Speed Series. Speed Series Saturday is being televised, or the afternoon is being televised on 9 on Gem, I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can watch it if
usually
you don't
is.
have. If you don't have,
Stan.
there was a rumor going round, but if you don't have Stan, which I don't know anybody who has Stan, but anyway, if you don't have Stan, you can watch it, and me too. If you don't have Stan, you can watch it there, or you can go out there. If you're in Melbourne, go out there on one day. The weather's turned a bit. We've had a few really nice days. Low 20s and bright sunshine. It's been absolutely lovely, and spring's been here. And then I think on Wednesday, on Saturday, it's going to be about 11 degrees and pouring with rain. So
Tomorrow, Friday is going to be 12.
Yeah. So it's today was about 19 or 20 or something. So
Melbourne, beautiful one day and only one day.
But it's a beautiful day.
Yeah.
And incidentally, it's not going to be too far away before we have all sorts of problems time-wise. And we'll have to go back in time with you, Mark, because we'll be doing this at... We'll be doing this, what, about 7th? I don't know which way it jumps.
7:30. Yeah, it'll be 7:30 for me.
Yeah.
So, I'll be just getting home from work. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so we might catch up. Yeah, they did mention... the free-to-air coverage on their website. Yeah, there's a few things at the moment, Roy, in regarding the promotion of the Speed Series, and there's a few stories running around. If you have a look at Speed Cafe this week, Roland Dane's column this week talks about the future of the Speed Series, where he makes a few good points, and it's one of the things I'm going to try and do over the weekend is catch up with Barry Rogers and a few of the people from the Speed Series and try and find out exactly where the series is going, because the Trans Am field is pretty good. TCR field is about 16, but pretty much everything else, the fields are sub 10. The marked cars are 9. I think there's about 9 or 10
S5000s?
cars. S5000s aren't running. They've cancelled. So... Yeah, and if they were, they probably only have 8 or 9 as well. So
it's not a GT round, is it?
No, it's not. That's why the marked cars are running by themselves. As I said, there's only 9 of them, and they're sort of a spectacular field of state of the art marked GT cars. It's like no, there's 9 of them, and there's only 2 of them are new and whatever.
Well,
okay, yeah, the brand new one is running. Yeah. Okay, guys, we better kill it off there. So we'll see you all. We'll see you all next week. Pete, I'll see you on Tuesday, and we'll see some of you tomorrow night, 9:00 on In Pit Lane on Channel 31. Until then, thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Bye.